The winter storm hammered against the forge windows like angry fists demanding entry. Finn wiped sweat from his brow as he worked the bellows, keeping the fire hot enough to shape the stubborn iron. At 25, he was the youngest master blacksmith the mountain village had ever known. His strong hands moved with practiced grace, turning raw metal into tools that would help his people survive another harsh winter. The wind howled through the gaps in the stone walls, carrying with it the scent of snow and something else. Something wild and desperate. Finn paused in his work, hammer suspended above the glowing metal. There it was again, a sound that didn't belong to the storm. A soft scratching at the door, followed by what sounded almost like crying, setting down his tools. Finn approached the heavy wooden door. The scratching came again, more insistent now. He lifted the iron latch and pulled the door open, just a crack. A blast of frigid air struck his face. But that wasn't what made him gasp. Huddled against his doorstep was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. No bigger than a house cat, she had scales that shimmered like starlight against midnight sky. Her wings were folded tight against her small body, trembling with cold and fear. When she looked up at him, her eyes were the color of burning amber, filled with intelligence and desperate hope. An unlikely bond by the ancient stones, Finn breathed, dropping to one knee. He had heard the old stories, the legends his grandmother used to tell by the fire. But dragons were supposed to be massive creatures of legend, not this tiny, shivering being who looked at him with such trust. The little dragon, for that's what she surely was, crawled closer to the warmth spilling from his forge. She made soft, chittering sounds, almost like words he couldn't quite understand. When she tried to stand, one wing drooped at an odd angle. Clearly injured, without hesitation, Finn scooped her up gently, her scales warm despite the cold. She didn't struggle, instead curling against his chest like a cat seeking comfort. He could feel her tiny heart beating rapidly, could see the exhaustion in her beautiful eyes. "Easy there, little one," he murmured, carrying her to his workbench. "Let me help you." The dragon watched with curious eyes as Finn cleared a space near the forge's warmth. He laid out soft leather scraps for bedding and filled a small bowl with clean water. When he offered her strips of dried meat from his own dinner, she ate gratefully, her strength slowly returning. As she recovered, something magical began to happen. The dragon started making different sounds, melodic trills that seemed to resonate with something deep in Finn's soul. And somehow, impossibly, he began to understand. Her name was Ember, and she was in terrible trouble. The desperate mission through a combination of her musical language and elaborate gestures with her good wing. Ember told Finn her story. She was not alone in this world. Deep beneath the mountains, in caverns older than human memory, lived a colony of dragons. They were peaceful creatures, keepers of ancient wisdom and guardians of powerful magic. But something had gone wrong. A curse, dark and binding, had trapped her family in crystal prisons deep underground. Ember had been the only one small enough to escape through the narrow passages when the curse struck. For days she had searched for help, growing weaker with each failed attempt to find someone who would listen, who would believe. The other humans she had encountered had either fled in terror or tried to capture her. But something about Finn was different. When she looked into his kind eyes, she saw a soul that could bridge the gap between their worlds. "You want me to come with you?" Finn said. Understanding flooding through him as Ember nodded eagerly. Into the caves beneath the mountains. It was madness. The old passages were treacherous, and winter made travel nearly impossible. He could die down there, lost in the darkness. But looking at Ember's hopeful face, seeing the trust she placed in him, Finn knew he couldn't refuse. The storm was weakening as Finn gathered supplies. He packed rope, torches, food, and his strongest tools. Most importantly, he took his grandfather's pendant, a piece of ancient crystal that was said to bring luck and protection. As he fastened it around his neck, the crystal began to glow with a soft blue light. Ember chirped excitedly, her eyes fixed on the pendant. She touched it gently with one tiny claw, and the glow intensified. Whatever lay ahead in those ancient caves, the crystal would guide them. Into the unknowns, dawn approached. the storm finally broke. Ember's wing had healed enough for short flights, and she led Finn through the village and up into the rocky foothills. The entrance to the caves was hidden behind a waterfall. Frozen now into spectacular curtains of ice, Finn used his hammer to break through the ice barrier, revealing a passage that seemed to breathe with ancient power. The walls were covered in symbols he didn't recognize, but somehow they felt familiar. As if speaking to memories buried deep in his bloodline, Ember flew ahead, her scales providing a soft light to guide the way. The passage sloped downward, winding deeper into the heart of the mountain. Strange crystals began to appear in the walls, pulsing with the same blue light as Finn's pendant. Hours passed as they descended through chambers carved by time and magic. Finally, they emerged into a vast cavern that took Finn's breath away. The ceiling soared into darkness above, while below, formations of crystals stretched as far as the eye could see, but it was what the crystals contained that made Finn's heart race with wonder and horror. The sight before Finn defied belief. Within towering crystal formations, dozens of dragons lay suspended in time itself. Each crystal prison glowed with an eerie purple light, and within them, dragons of every size and color remained perfectly preserved. Some were massive, with wingspans that could cover his entire forge. Others were smaller, more delicate, with scales that sparkled like precious gems. Ember flew frantically from crystal to crystal, pressing her tiny body against each one and crying out in a language that needed no translation. These were her family, her friends, her entire world, trapped in magical amber. At the center of the cavern stood the largest crystal of all. Within it, a magnificent dragon, unlike any other, lay motionless. Her scales were pure silver, and even in her frozen state, she radiated power and grace. A crown of natural crystal formations adorned her head, marking her as royalty. Celestine, Ember whispered, the first word Finn had heard her speak in human tongue. Her voice was like wind chimes, touched by a gentle breeze. My queen, my sister. Finn approached the central crystal carefully. His grandfather's pendant grew brighter with each step, responding to the ancient magic that filled this place. When he placed his hand on the smooth surface, images flooded his mind. The curse revealed through the crystal's memory, Finn saw the truth. Long ago, humans and dragons had lived in harmony. The dragons shared their wisdom and magic, helping humans build great cities and learn the secrets of the earth. But fear and greed corrupted some human hearts. A dark sorcerer named Malachar had coveted the dragon's power for himself, using forbidden magic. Malachar had created a curse designed to steal the dragon's essence for his own immortality. But the spell had gone wrong, trapping the dragons in crystal instead of destroying them. The sorcerer had died in the magical backlash, but his curse remained, growing stronger with each passing century. Only one thing could break such ancient magic: a bond of pure love between human and dragon, freely given and accepted by both hearts. Ember had known this truth in her soul when she sought Finn out. Something about him called to her, a connection that transcended species. As Finn watched her mourn her trapped family, he felt that same connection growing stronger. There is a way, he said softly, understanding flooding through him. But it requires trust beyond anything either of our kinds has known. Love's first light. Ember turned to him, her amber eyes bright with hope and something deeper. In the crystal light, she began to change. Her small form grew more graceful, more luminous. Though she remained dragon in essence, something fundamentally shifted in how Finn saw her. She was not just a magical creature in need of help. She was intelligent, brave, compassionate, and beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with species. When she spoke his name, her voice carried warmth that reached his very soul. Finn, she said, landing gently on his shoulder. Will you help me save them? Even knowing what it might cost? He understood her meaning. To break a curse this powerful would require him to open his heart completely, to accept a bond that would change him forever. He might lose his humanity, or worse. He might lose his life entirely. But looking into Ember's trusting eyes, seeing the love she held for her family, Finn knew his answer. He had been alone his entire life, dedicated to his craft, but never to another soul. Here in this magical place, he had found something worth any sacrifice. Yes, he whispered, and meant it with every fiber of his being. As Finn spoke his acceptance, the crystals throughout the cavern began to resonate with a pure, clear tone. Ember flew to the center of the chamber, her small form beginning to glow with inner light. The pendant around Finn's neck burned with matching radiance. "Stand with me," Ember called, her voice echoing with newfound power. "Place your hand upon Celestine's crystal. Let our hearts speak as one." Finn approached the great crystal fearlessly. When his palm touched its surface, warmth flooded through him. He felt Ember's presence in his mind, not intrusive, but welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. Around them, the trapped dragons began to stir. Though still encased in crystal, their eyes opened one by one. Watching with wonder as the ancient prophecy unfolded before them, Ember's transformation began in earnest now. Her small dragon form expanded, becoming more luminous, more graceful. But she remained herself, the brave little creature who had trusted a stranger with her family's fate. Her scales now shimmered with every color of the rainbow, and when she looked at Finn, her eyes held depths of wisdom and love that took his breath away. "Do not be afraid," she said, her voice now carrying the music of wind and water, of earth and flame. "Love changes us, but it does not diminish us." The breaking of chains, Finn felt the truth of her words as his own transformation began. He remained human, but something fundamental shifted within him. His senses expanded, allowing him to hear the song of the stones, to feel the pulse of the earth's heart. The boundary between human and dragon blurred, not through magic alone, but through the deeper alchemy of love freely given. Together, they spoke words in a language older than memory, words that came from their joined hearts rather than their minds. The crystals began to crack, hairline fractures spreading like spider webs across their surfaces. One by one, the dragons broke free. They emerged gasping and grateful, their own voices joining the song that filled the cavern. When Celestine finally stepped from her crystal prison, her silver scales caught the light like starfire. "Sister," she said to Ember, her voice warm with pride and love, "you have done what none thought possible. You have bridged two worlds through courage and love." The queen dragon turned to Finn with respect shining in her ancient eyes. "Human child, you have proven that the old bonds between our peoples can be renewed. What would you ask of us in return for this great gift?" A new beginning. Finn looked around at the dragons, stretching their wings for the first time in centuries. At Ember glowing with joy beside him, and knew his answer. "I ask for nothing but the chance to learn from each other, to rebuild the friendship our ancestors once shared." Celestine smiled, an expression of such grace and wisdom that it brought tears to Finn's eyes. "Then let it be so. From this day forward, dragons and humans shall walk together once more." As the dragons began to explore their freedom, Ember remained close to Finn's side. The bond between them had changed them both, but it had also shown them truths about love that neither species had understood before. "Will you stay with us?" Ember asked, though her heart already knew the answer. "Will you help us teach both our peoples that love knows no boundaries?" Finn took her clawed hand in his human one, marveling at how perfectly they fit together despite their differences. "For as long as you'll have me," he promised. "Forever, if you'll let me." The cavern filled with dragon song as the colony celebrated their freedom, as the love that had made it possible. Outside, spring was coming to the mountains. Inside the crystal caves, a new age was beginning, one built on the foundation that Ember and Finn had discovered together.